Every single thing in this video is alleged. Do not send any hate to Becca or her husband. This was just a quick little video topic that I wanted to talk about, a little break from all the other serious topics that I have. But yeah, no, this is a very lighthearted, non-serious, everything is alleged. Your girl has exams, so we're going to avoid the morbid things. I hope you have a good day. Enjoy the video. There is something extremely funny about watching rich people go out of their way to try and convince us that they're rich. And I don't mean rich people who, casually live their lives and go out buying expensive things, sometimes showing us. I mean a very specific genre where every single object around this so-called rich person is just like a big scream for attention or like acknowledge how much money I have. And one of the people who has become very popular for this is Becca Bloom, also known as Rebecca Ma. She has basically become the unofficial queen of rich talk. By filming herself eating luxury breakfast, she's always buying or unboxing designer luxury. She's talking about money constantly, and she's always just casually existing around very rich things that the average person can never see themselves around, no matter how long they work for. Her entire appeal is she doesn't present herself like a very flashy, screaming influencer. She speaks very softly, she dresses nicely, and she acts all around very tame and normal, like the old rich aesthetic that a lot of people like. And to be fair, there is a lot of evidence that Becca does actually come from a big line of wealth. She did grow up in a rich family, and her parents are CEOs of a tech IT company. It's just the wealth that she puts on social media isn't as much as she seems to have in real life. And that's where the entire issue or the controversy comes in. One of the biggest discussions surrounding Becca has been the spaces that she films in. Viewers have questioned whether some of the properties shown in her content are actually her home, or if they're family properties, or if just they're plain out being rented. There are a lot of Reddit threads where people have analyzed her backgrounds, and some people do argue that the spaces don't even look lived in. They basically just look like as if she had walked in that day. She had booked this place out, had sat down her tripod, her camera, she did her unboxing, she ate her breakfast, and then she left. Because again, the space was rented, she was scheduled to leave that day. And this is where the alleged apartment but calling it a house situation kind of comes in. Because in a past TikTok, Becca had been going over homes that her and her husband had actually been considering on buying. And those homes weren't your casual cute houses, I mean, as you can imagine, because a lot of them stretched all the way up to more than 20 million US dollars, which, to keep you down on earth and in the loop of where we are as humanity, the average American adult makes about like $64,000 to $70,000 a year. It would take the average person more than 300 years just to earn $20 million. And that's if they never spent that money on things like groceries, clothes, or any sort of bills. That's the only way that you and I can achieve $20 million, is if we worked for 300 years straight without spending a single cent. And that's talking about the kind of like medium earner, because some jobs do go lower. But anyway, she practically went over these houses, listing reasons why they didn't choose them, which were often very tiny reasons like decor or stuff like that. And not long after, people noticed that she had continued living in her small apartment, which, yes, the apartment still had the luxury feel to it, but it was a very big contrast to the wealthy homes that she had just been flaunting like not that long ago. And people have always questioned her wealth, but this was when people really started to raise eyebrows, because what? How does she make this sort of money? Yes, she came from a big lineage of wealth, and TikTok does pay, but not to the extent where someone is casually throwing around million-dollar homes and rejecting them just because. When your entire online persona is built around showing people what your luxury life looks like, viewers are naturally going to start questioning what is real and what isn't. You can't expect to continue flaunting without an explanation, because a lack of explanation only ever leads to more speculation. And the wedding is where the internet really started to have a field day with this entire situation because on paper it was the ultimate rich person wedding. I mean, their wedding was at Lake Como, Villa Barbiano, designer gowns, Van Cleef, Oscar de la Renta, like a whole reported $6 million plus celebration according to some coverage, although estimates vary significantly depending on what is included. And yet somehow one of the things that people couldn't stop talking about was her husband's suit. A lot of people pointed out that her husband's wedding suit appeared very badly fitted and very loose. There was some joking that it looked more like it belonged to someone several sizes larger than him. Again, this isn't evidence of anything financial. An expensive suit can fit badly, a tailoring mistake can happen, and rich people are perfectly capable of having terrible fashion days. But the contrast was what made people really laugh, because imagine spending so much money on a wedding surrounded by wedding brands, couture fitting, high jewelry, only for you to not bother go get your husband's suit fitted. Like, who dressed you, you know? Because there's so many brands there, and when you have that much money, a tailor doesn't actually cost that much. I mean, you have to remember, this was the same couple that was talking about buying $20 million homes, but you can't get your husband's suit fitted. Again, questions started going up everywhere. Like, don't get me wrong, the wedding was absolutely beautiful. The flowers, the decor, everything was beautiful. Her dress was really nice, but you just really can't take your eyes off of the imperfection of the suit when everything else around them was made to be very appealing and very perfect. Stepping away from the wedding though, another big thing that viewers had noticed was the way that Becca sometimes reacts to luxury objects. And this is probably the most subjective criticism because it's basically impossible to diagnose someone's bank account simply based off of their facial expression or the way that they reacted 2 days ago. But people have commented that she sometimes seems very fascinated by certain luxury objects despite claiming that, you know, she's surrounded by them. Like, this is her normal day-to-day life. Because the thing is, if you actually did grow up extremely wealthy, some things that seem absolutely insane to the normal person become completely boring to you, which is a very big issue that we have in society because it creates a big disconnect between people. But if your childhood involved luxury cars, expensive restaurants, designer, jewelry, you probably aren't going to have a spiritual awakening every time you see like a Van Cleef bracelet. But Becca's content often works because she makes luxury feel exciting. She'll explain why a particular object is special, she'll talk about the design and the details, and she'll treat certain purchases like they're little discoveries. And this is great content. In fact, that's probably the reason why she became so successful, but it also creates a very weird contradiction. If you're trying to convince millions of people that this is simply your everyday life, why does your everyday life look like a wealthy person's version of a shopping channel demonstration? You know, it doesn't feel authentic. It seems more she's a seller trying to convince us to like buy into this image that she's curated. And again, this doesn't necessarily prove that she's faking everything. It just shows how wealth on social media is barely wealth. Like, a lot of the times it is performance. And Becca Bloom isn't the only person who's doing this. I mean, there's a lot of people, definitely, but it doesn't even just stop to the West. I mean, in 2025, just last year, there was a situation in China where a very loved influencer, Xia Yuanzi, or who is known as Little Fishbowl, became subject to such a big, ridiculous scandal. Because just like Becca Bloom, she had also been spending her entire life kind of making this perfect image of herself. She made herself out to be very luxurious. She hung out with all the big names. She only shopped luxury. And she built her entire online personality off of this, but only later for her friends to come out and accuse her of stealing their luxury belongings and going out of her way to replace them with counterfeit. They're just such big extents to go to for the sake of just faking your life. And this girl particularly went to so many extents just to achieve this. Like, everything that she did was so perfectly calculated. Like, she would visit her friends for sleepovers, you know, with large suitcases. And the second everyone fell asleep, she'd be walking around the kitchen late at night, visiting their walk-in closets, take whatever luxury brands that she wants, quickly replace them with like the counterfeit. There's just so much to do to live a fake life. Call me lazy or call me what, but I just find the entire thing unnecessary. And this isn't to say that Becca Bloom is 100% faking her life and she's 100% a liar. Because whether every allegation about her lifestyle is true or not, there is a very obvious business model behind the entire thing. If your entire platform is built around showing people your supposedly effortless multi-millionaire lifestyle, you aren't just entertaining them. You're positioning yourself as someone who can teach them how to become wealthy too. And that's why exaggerating or carefully creating this image would be so valuable, because the lifestyle itself becomes the advertisement. You don't necessarily have to tell someone, oh, buy my product because I'm successful. You just spend enough time showing them a life that they desperately want, and eventually they're going to say, okay, how do I do this? Teach me. And that's when the product comes in. Whether it's financial advice, courses, memberships, whatever it is, the luxury lifestyle is ultimately a funnel. The audience isn't just consuming a rich woman's life for entertainment, they're being sold the idea that she possesses some sort of secret knowledge that the rest of us don't have. And that's probably the most important thing to remember watching any influencer who teaches wealth, because we saw the same pattern years ago, except that was mainly curated towards men. I mean, we had drop shippers, we had Andrew Tate, we had everything. And this isn't directly comparing Becca Bloom to Andrew Tate. It's literally just saying that the strategies that the old influencers used is basically the same strategy that she is using. You fake a lifestyle, you talk about how you're making 10 grand a month and all this and all that until they want to buy your crash course. That's just how it works. And we've seen it done countless and countless times. And Becca herself has started making TikToks, basically kind of soft launching where she's going with this, but that's just what it is. And that's that. But just as I said at the start, do not send Becca absolutely any hate, okay? This is just kind of like a little topic I wanted to talk about, because the other topics that I do when I make proper videos on, they're all quite serious. And the thing is, I'm currently doing my exams. Pray for me, but I am currently doing my exams. And I don't want to do like a genuine serious topic when I'm constantly in a rush. I feel like that's the perfect recipe for a disaster with, you know, a lot of information getting mixed up and everything. Next week, I will not have an upload, unfortunately, but after that, I have a lot of topics lined up. So I hope you guys can join me in 2 weeks. Hell yeah. What am I doing? Oh my god.